Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very special episode of the cEDH cast. Today I'm here with a very special friend, Riker. Hello, Riker.
Hi, Braden. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. Doing well.
Awesome. We took a while to get this finally going. This is a very high quality episode of the cEDH cast. This is going to be the most slides, the most transitions, the most PNGs ever compiled in the history of cEDH cast. So you should be very thankful, and I'm sure the viewers will be happy to see all the pretty cards we have. And there's no awkward white corners on the cards. Even better. This is,
Braden
what
was
else can you
very
ask
proud
for?
of this. Yes. Yep.
Yeah, that's why I'm bragging about it. You gotta be happy with what you got. So today we're going to be discussing the love of your life, I assume.
Yeah.
Dargo, the Shipbreaker. So we have
Shipwrecker. Close.
the Shipwrecker. I'm sorry. Dargo the Shipwrecker is a giant pirate. I mean, he's literally a giant pirate, but he's also a giant who is a pirate. He costs 6 in a red, and as an additional cost to cast this spell, you may sacrifice any number of artifacts and or creatures. This spell costs 2 less to cast for each permanent sacrifice this way, and 2 less to cast for each other artifact or creature you've sacrificed this turn. Notably, if you've sacrificed a different version of Dargo, like you cast your commander and then you sack him to some other effect, let's say it's a Phyrexian Altar, he will count that. So it's not other like physical cards, it's kind of about like other objects in the game, which is sometimes that same card but on the battlefield. It's kind of complicated, but just know if you sacrifice your Dargo, put him in the command zone, and if you did that this turn, he'll cost 2 less, so you'll kind of get by the commander tax. He has a really cool combo with a card called Phyrexian Altar, which if you've ever played any casual EDH, I'm sure you're very familiar with. It's kind of a staple, I'd say. It's 3 colorless for an artifact. You sacrifice a creature to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So if you sacrifice 3 creatures to Phyrexian Altar, you'll get 3 mana. You can use one of that mana to play Dargo. Then you can sack Dargo, pay the red mana you got to play Dargo again. Now you can cast Dargo any number of times. So that's pretty unique, very powerful. Obviously, getting Infinite Storm. Also, just like getting a weird commander that costs almost nothing from the command zone. When you saw this commander, what was like the first direction you wanted to take it, Riker?
I wanted to take it where no one else was taking it. So I thought Grixis, because Grixis was naturally a strong shell to put kind of any commander in. I saw the 7/5 trample, and I thought that he'd be good in stacks metas. I saw the 7 casting costs, and I thought he may be a good Neoform target, or Eldritch Evolution. So I knew there were a bunch of different places that it could be taken. I also knew that Creature Storm was a thing, and it dodges a lot of counter spells. So while getting Storm up, you had the opportunity to play some cards that we'll talk about in a few of the different versions of this deck that are otherwise not played much in cEDH, and it often gets people. So when you create this sort of Storm loop, you can play cards such as Grape Shot to kill people, and people will, look at their hand and see this like, singular counter spell thinking that they had the answer for it, and then they just get blown out. So it allows you to do some really interesting things that aren't being done so much in cEDH, and that's kind of the area that I like to live. So when I saw this big boy, I just knew I wanted to start with probably one of the stronger shells, which would be Grixis, because you're playing artifact synergies with Phyrexian Altar. Silas Wren naturally fits in. So that's kind of where I started off.
Sure. So, yeah, looking at Silas Wren, he's a artifact creature, which is it's kind of actually interesting. I'm sure it comes up with cards like Transmute Artifact, but him being an artifact is really neat. He costs a 1, a blue, and a black. He has Death Touch. Whenever he deals combat damage to a player, you choose target artifact card in your graveyard. You may cast that card at this turn. He has partner, so you can partner with Dargo. Now, we have Entomb highlighted here because you can always just Entomb that Phyrexian Altar and use Silas to get it out of the graveyard, which means there's a few cards like Entomb, Goblin Engineer that really can use Silas Ren to get those combo pieces out really consistently.
Exactly. So Silas usually comes out on turn 2 for the most part, most games. That's really what you want to aim for. And then you use some value pieces, like there's some baubles in it, Aether Spellbomb. Jeweled Lotus is a really good one in this deck. You turn 1 Silas Ren, and then turn 2 attack with Silas Ren, get it back, cast Dargo, and do whatever you want.
Yeah, because if you
It's
sack Jeweled Lotus, that makes 5 mana towards Dargo, which is
exactly.
pretty insane.
Yeah. It gets out of control really quick. So like a card like that, I know there's split camps on like what the best deck, Dual Lotus is going in. Like, there's a bunch of different options, but it's really strong in this one. And Entomb acts as that, instant speed, no blocks, tutor whatever I need for the most part. Most of the time it's going to be Phyrexian Altar. Sometimes if you're going to go down the route of like breach things with LED could be a really good one too, because this deck has a lot of layered synergies with your brain freeze and LED, which we'll get into a
Yeah.
second. But
So
yeah,
the first card we have highlighted here is Brain Freeze because, obviously Brain Freeze is really powerful with breach decks, but when you have a commander that can always just cast artifacts out of your graveyard, once you have a certain density of artifacts, which Dargo already incentivizes you to do, Brain Freeze can actually fill your graveyard pretty quickly, especially if, someone tries to go off on their own turn and you're just holding this Brain Freeze in your hand like, oh, you cast 7 spells this turn trying to go off. I'm going to put half my deck in my graveyard. So
exactly.
obviously,
Yeah,
that's really powerful.
yeah,
And
and then you
then,
have Silas to scoop him up.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And then we have LED and Underworld Breach, where your brain freezes. You might just have your Underworld Breach in hand, or you might have a tutor, and like, hey, I got all the juice I need. I can always just cast Brain Freeze again, and you can always go for that Underworld Breach line if it ends up being the kind of the most optimal. Like if someone, for the love of God, gilded Drakeshire Dargo, which I'm sure they shouldn't have done, but knowing Riker,
there's no
I'm
time when Dargo comes out. He stomps on people's faces. There's no gilding Drake and Dargo, because when Dargo comes out, you're most likely gonna probably
yeah,
die.
7/5 tramples,
Yeah.
big scary. So yeah, and we have one more section which is just talking about Transmute Artifact. This is a card that's also good in a few builds of the deck, but especially this one when you have the Silas Ren in the command zone, Transmute Artifact can just be a 2 mana tutor for Phyrexian Altar, which is pretty insane.
Yeah, that's very strong. The fact that this deck relies on Dockside a lot, like most other red decks do, but treasures to get there. We have a lot of cheap artifacts, Mox Amber, that sort of stuff that isn't really a problem to get kind of the artifact that you need to win the game. But Transmute, I don't see play too much in cEDH, but this is one of those unique decks where it can grab your Storm Wincon piece with Dargo. So it seems really efficient for 2 mana for getting.
The one deck I've also seen it played in is the Malcolm Timna High Tide deck. It has like a 2 card combo of sorts with what is it called?
Do you get Bolas' Citadel with that deck? I
Yeah,
don't
you
know.
get Bulls of Citadel. Yeah, so you get it's like if you have a Grim Monolith in play, it's like a 3 mana Bulls of Citadel is like the idea.
Yeah.
Um, so
It's a good card, but a lot of people don't know that you sack an artifact on resolution, so you can't get blown out by it.
yeah,
I think people see that, and there's so much text, and it's older than most Magic players these days, and you can't really get blown out by it. So it's a nice one. It's just really expensive. So
yeah, for sure.
yeah,
So the next color combination we have is Jund Dargo. So that's when you partner Dargo with Ikra Shadiki, the Usurper. Ikra Shadiki actually has some really powerful text, so I'll just point it out real quick. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness. That's really good with cards like Necropotence and Ad Nauseam. So if you're able to, get out an early Ikra Shadiki and a Dargo, you could start gaining like 12 life a turn, 13 life, 15 life a turn, depending on if you have a Dockside in play or something. Um, I found that to be very powerful. I know Leptis also has a Abzan farm deck that is kind of built around abusing Ikra Shadiki, so pretty powerful commander. How well does this deck take advantage of it, do you think?
Yeah, so I started with the Grixis version and I really enjoyed it. And I noticed that other people were trying all the flavors of Dargo, and Jund seemed like another strong one. I know there's been success in the past with other Jund decks starting back Prosh years ago, and as of recent, Corvald, which is your baby. I know that there's competition in these color types, so I knew that this would have to be sort of strong because there's already a sort of a precedent for these color combinations. So having, what is it, 12 mana in the command zone is kind of gnarly to think about. But when going towards Jund, I noticed that what Jund has going for it is the strict proactive nature of all the cards. You're not forced to play the, 7 to 10 counter spells disruption package. You do what you really need to, but you sacrifice that consistency and resiliency for speed.
Yeah. So
So, yeah.
so getting to the first like slide we have the fact that Dargo can very easily be Eldritch Evolution or Birthing Pod into a Razaketh, which is a pretty powerful like reanimation card. People are cheating that out pretty often. So to have like a really nice way to turn Dargo into a Razaketh, which also sacrifices creatures, which means you really basically have pay 1 red, demonic tutor any number of times, right? Like if you find an LED, you crack the LED, which makes Dargo even cheaper. Then you make 3 red, and now you can pay 6 life and tutor 3 times. That's pretty
Yep.
insane. So I'd
Yeah,
say this.
if you can't win the game with the birthing pot out like relatively early and being able to cast a Dargo, like I don't know, you should work on your lines. It
Yeah,
gets there a lot. Yeah.
yeah. I think this is actually probably one of the better Razkat decks because the problem with Razkat in my mind is like you have to have the dorks, and like if I feel like in those colors like there's cards like Culling the Weak and Diabolic Intent. There's so much pressure on your dorks being used as a resource. I just feel like in Jund especially, but really in every color combination, Razaketh like has serious problems like repeatedly tutoring when you like turbo him out. While with this deck, like if you can sack one thing after Razaketh resolves, you don't need any mana. You just find LED and you win, right? Like it's super
Yep,
easy. The problem is that
exactly.
it's difficult to tutor for Eldritch Evolution in Jund. It's difficult to tutor for, I guess in comparison to Grixis, um, it's difficult to tutor for the Phyrexian Altar. It's difficult to tutor for any of your tutors that put Razaketh into play. You have the black tutors, obviously, but in Grixis, you get access to Transmute Artifact and um, I don't know if you're not like Fabricate. You're probably not playing that, but you know what I mean. Like you do have at least some more density, like mystical tutors. For you can always mystical tutor for transmute, for example, right? Um, you get
Exactly.
gamble, but you probably are
Yeah.
already playing gamble, so it's just kind of hard to have the density, right?
Yeah, that's what I was finding with Jund. It has speed. So like burn offering and sacrifice, for example,
Yeah,
are,
you can
well, yeah, here we go.
we can skip over to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, burnt offering.
One mana sack Dargo, add 7 mana to your mana pool, peer into the abyss feels good. Um,
Yeah, I
that'll
mean
get you
also
out of bed
cards
in the
like
morning. Yeah.
that. It also has cards like Greater Good, where it's kind of like Razaketh, where you just pay 1 red, draw 7 cards, pay 1 red, draw 7 more cards. If you can hit
Exactly.
like a Simian Spirit Guide or a Mox Diamond, like it's basically free. I
Yep.
have this happen in Corvold all the time, where it's like my infinite recursion. I don't have enough mana to do my infinite recursion, but I have enough mana acceleration in my deck that I can afford to just like chain these recursive uh, engines together over and over again to find a win. I feel like this deck it's not ridiculous at all that you'd like draw 7 cards, hit a mana accelerant, draw 7 more cards, hit another mana accelerant. Oh, I hit a Jessica's Will. That pays for my next 8
Yeah.
greater goods. Oh, that's my deck. you know?
Exactly. It's really similar in that like here we go, like strap on a helmet, let's go because there's a lot of rituals in the deck. There's a lot of sacrificing. There's a lot of drawing and that sort of thing. So when I say it's like, Corvald's like cousin, it kind of feels that way a little bit. And I think similar to Corval, it has sort of a grindy plan on it because you can get into these lines where you're getting a Razakath or you're getting some of these other value creatures with the creature tutors you have available with like Finale Devastation and that sort of
Yeah. You're basically
So,
trading like a grindy commander that can always like just turn fetch lands into card draw into having way higher density of bombs,
yep.
right? I guess the difference, in my opinion, is like because Coral can convert Dockside to a bomb, it can convert every tutor into a bomb, every reanimation spell back into a bomb, and that's like kind of the advantage I think it has over the Jund Dargo deck.
Yeah, I mean, so this deck again was sort of suggested to me that I should try it, and I wanted to because I was so gung ho on Grixis, thinking that was the best variant. I wanted to see the other side of the aisle and see what this was like. So I know deck builders like Coco were really like advocating for this style of deck. So I wanted to give it a shot, and it runs some cool cards in here. I've seen things like the Great Henge to go infinite with Dargo because you draw your deck, which is really fun. Things like Disciple of Bolas, where you can sack Dargo and draw 7 cards, gain 7 life, and it's a creature tutor that you can do off pod. So there's a lot of like interesting things that are, again, not really widely seen in cEDH, which are still relatively competitive. But
Yeah,
Jund was cool, but eventually,
and
I wanted to kind of move on to.
yeah, and just speaking of cards that are common in CDH, we do have Dockside Extortionist and
Yeah.
Adnals. So the card quality, we already said it's like very bomb heavy. Like you do have these cards like Dockside Extortionist and Adnals, and you can't just like dump your hand on turn 1 or turn 2, right? Like that's this deck's definitely capable of
Yeah,
that, right?
Yeah, and another interesting part that is sometimes overlooked is if you aren't in an all Adnaz meta and it's really stacks based, having a 7/5 and 3/7 menace gains you a lot of life and gives you a lot of cards off things like Adnaz if you eventually can get to it. So this like hidden mode of having 2 beefy boys in the command zone is really strong, and you get this extra life, which something that you may find kind of people know you're on Corvald and they're like, oh, I'm going to attack you. You basically have no life gain in your deck. You have this sort of
Yeah,
backdoor
you do
grindy engine.
have
Yeah.
in the same way you have Dargo, we do have a flying blocker. Like a lot of times, I've heard this before, which is totally incorrect. Don't follow this logic. But I heard someone once say, "Hey, I can't hit him. I can only hit him once, so I might as well not hit him." Uh, which is just absolutely not true. I didn't correct them because I didn't want to lose 4 life before I played my Necropotence.
Right.
But
Right.
um, a lot of times people will think that they'll be like, well, I know he's playing Corval next turn, and Corval will be a 5/5, so I want to get my extra 4 commander damage on this guy. But you're probably not winning with commander damage with Crom, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I guess my point was more I gain a bunch of life to make Adnaz as much stronger.
Oh,
While
yeah,
Corvald can't leverage that sort of aspect.
yeah, and as a 7/5, you're probably going to be threatening. It's 3 hits,
Yeah.
maybe 4 hits if they block aggressively. Um,
Right.
and that entire time you're also going to be hitting another opponent for 3 every turn and gaining 7 life. It's just like, whew,
Yeah.
that's
Yep.
rough. It's not where
Yep.
you want to be.
Yep.
All
So
right.
Jund is good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we're on Temur Dargo. We have Dargo and Thrasios Triton Hero. Thrasios is probably the most famous wizard in CDH. Probably, maybe outclassed by Thos. I think Thassa's Oracle is also a wizard, but it's pretty close. So Thrasios is a green and a blue for a legendary Merfolk wizard. Has pay 4, scry 1, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put on the battlefield tap, then you draw a card. Or, sorry, if it's not a land, you draw a card. Sorry. And it's a 1/3. So, what is appealing to you about Temur and having this infinite mana outlet and the command zone? What about that kind of pulls you in
So
this direction?
on my world tour of Dargo, I noticed that this was another color combination that got a lot of attention, from day one, and no one really explored it. And I had all these creature tutors that I weren't using in other decks, like this foil miscut finale devastation and all of these cards. And I'm like, I really want to make a creature tutor deck. And so I was thinking the pros that I've learned on, the exploration of Dargo is you want a lot of mana, which is good with green. It really helps with Carpet of Flowers and Dorks. You have these creature tutors, which are good if you want to start doing storm things and getting Dockside and Spellseeker and Baron or whatever else you're going to do. And you're playing things like dramatic reversal, and just as a like a ritual. Like it's you don't even need to use the isochron, even though I do in this version at the moment. So I knew that I wanted to find a way to make infinite mana, and Dargo is 7, which I was like, I wonder what good 8 drops there are to make infinite mana.
Hmm. Instead
Oh,
of
yeah, right.
oh yeah,
Perfect
we have
transition.
a Tide Spout Tyrant. He's 5 blue, 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 so 8 mana for a Jin. He's flying. Whenever you cast a spell, return target permanent to its owner's hand. That's pretty good. So a common line, I suppose, is you play your Mox Amber, bounce your Soul Ring, play your Soul Ring, bounce your Mox Amber, floating them for mana, and now you're generating infinite mana. And you got this really handy dandy Thrasios in the command zone that can always just put that mana into drawing your whole deck.
Exactly.
So
Very, very strong. And this really takes advantage of the pod line. So, um, how do we get it? Well, we have things like Eldritch Evolution and Neoform. We also have Birthing Pod. These spells are very strong. And leaning away from black was a little tough at first. And as I explore this deck and maybe other variants later, things like Vamp Tutor, Demonic Tutor, Diabolic Intent, that sort of things are really good. But you know what's better than like tutoring for a Tidespout and trying to play it is 2 mana just putting it into play. So these
yeah,
sort of rituals or these sort of tutor effect creature tutors are very
they
strong.
are rituals
They
and
they are, yeah.
tutors. That's the crazy thing about them, right? It's like it's a 3 mana Seaborn Muse. It's a not in this deck, obviously, but a lot of times Eldritch Evolution represents a 3 mana Seaborn Muse. This Neoform represents a Demonic Tutor plus a Thassa's Oracle a lot of the time, or even just a 2 mana Spellseeker. So in this deck, 2 mana Tidespell Tyrant's pretty dumb.
Exactly. And so since we're leveraging these tutors and we talked about before that Dargo likes the storm kind of things, I knew that you could get a free roll with Baron Master Wizard with Dockside as well, since you're doing all of these tutoring. So like putting Thrasios, for example, neoforming or E if you need or whatever, Birthing Pod into Baron with Dockside, like you're just gonna go off too, with your storm count. So and
Also,
draw your deck. Yeah.
you can also just find your dorks. Find your dockside using your dorks. So you can always just say, "Hey, I'm just gonna absolutely explode off of a dockside,
Yep.
and I already have my. I can either make 8 mana and cast this Tidespot Tyrant in my hand, or I already have my Baron, or I have another creature tutor that's useful. So, yeah, I mean these cards are broken. They're just broken.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. So they're very strong. And since we're doing like this sort of really fast turbo creature type storm deck, cards like Spellseeker are unbelievable in this deck. It finds you a lot of things, including win cons that you need. So like a Finale of Devastation, for example, is just a very strong card everyone knows about. Often I'm winning with Grape Shots because I know it has this backup protection of really not being able to be stopped by normal counter magic, and that's how I win a lot of games. Um, Transmute Artifact is a great one to get off of it. It's not as good when you don't have Silas Ren in an artifact in the command zone, but it's still strong. Rift if I'm playing versus a Staxy meta and I just want to sweep the board. There's basically all different types of win cons that you can get with this. Not to mention just Neoform, right? Just grabbing Neoform and then turning Dargo into Tidespout.
Yeah, you can always just sack your Spellseeker towards uh, the Dargo, making it cheaper that turn. So it's
Yep.
like I I I've been trying to push for Spellseeker to be played in like Tevisat decks for like the same reason. Is that you can always just like play it, tutor up, just even like a counter spell or another tutor or something, and then just sack it to Tevisat to draw 2 cards. I feel like in this deck, like that Spellseeker having that body, finding something like a removal spell, maybe a storm payoff, anything really, tutor for your arena. That's kind of insane.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Spellseeker is strong in most decks. I think it's really leveraged here because you can just sack it to Dargo to get it out cheaper, and all the things we've talked about with like Jeweled Lotus being 5 mana towards a Dargo. there's just a lot of layered synergies in all these decks, which are really nice. And Glimpse of Nature is another one that is 1 mana. You can go off with an altar. So let's say you get in the situation where you have Thrasios out, you have Dargo out, and an altar. You don't really have a way to do it or go off and get infinite mana. Glimpse of Nature, you could just draw your deck, which you'll get there from that. So it's 1 mana, it's sneaky. You hold it in your hand. I was trying to find lean ways to kind of hide this information. Yeah, it gets hit by mental misstep and some other things too, but I was looking for efficient ways to kind of go off and have it be layered. So yeah, the glimpse, and there's a few other options that you can use too, but I found that pretty effective to even just cycle. Like if you're going to play a couple dorks, you play something turn 1, Soul Ring, couple
Or
dorks.
Dargo or Thrasios, like
Yeah,
seems very reasonable to me.
It's a low floor or high floor, low ceiling. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good.
All right, so that's the end of our Dargo World Tour. Dargo World Tour.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else you'd like to add about Dargo? Any information people need to hear?
There's a Dargo Discord which is pretty active. I know a lot of people have been using mono red. I think that's the most notable. It may have even gotten into one of the decklist databases like Brew areas. That uses more of a stacks based, which is pretty interesting because you can play things like Chalice of the Void on turn 1 and stacks pieces, and then when you're ready to go off, you can just sack them. Like Aethersworn Canonist, like play it, and then when you're ready to go off, go whoop, and pop everything up.
You have Jessica's will, not Jessica, not Jessica's will, in the command zone as a way to win the game. Kind of like the Jessica food chain decks, where you're like, you cast a spell, you cast other commander infinitely, then you pay off by casting Jessica once and killing the table. You can do the same thing with Dargo by just infinitely casting Dargo, then playing Jessica, killing the table.
Yeah, that's definitely a deck that I think people like. I think it's a little too swingy for me. I don't like that all in. Like you're playing Godo at that point, basically. There's also
like
some
awkward Godo where you actually have to tutor for something instead of just winning the game with 11 mana.
Exactly. So it's a little awkward for me. I mean, people play Cheerios version where you just cast Dargo like 80% of the time on turn 1, cast Jessica, triple strike, kill someone, and just do it 2 more times. That's cute.
Oh, no.
Yeah, there is a Naya version of the deck, which actually isn't a Naya version. No one's built it because I don't think it's going to be very good. That's one flavor of Dargo I will not touch. And there's also Mardu, which there's actually a lot of synergies in the Mardu archetype. There's Mad Farm that's been popularized. That still does well.
Dargo Pirate Farm. That's the name of the deck. I already named it. Go me. Got it.
Wait, what's the pirate farm with Dargo?
It's a farm deck that plays Dargo, and Dargo's a pirate, and Dockside's a pirate.
Oh, okay. Yeah, makes sense. That checks out.
So now you're a pirate farm deck.
Pirate farm.
Guys, I solved the deck naming. I've solved it. You just put pirate in the deck name, and people love it. It's that simple.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, I love it. I'm that simple. I think people like pirates. Who knows?
I think so too. Actually, the funny part of some of this is a call out to one card I really enjoyed. I've taken it out because things have gotten a little too quick. But Forerunner of the Coalition is a card from Rivals of Ixalan. It's a 3 mana Imperial Seal for a pirate, where you can put a pirate on top.
Oh.
So for 3 mana, you can cast this card. It's a pirate. It tutors Dockside to the top. So you get a Dockside, which basically is the ritual for what you need. And whenever a pirate comes into play, each opponent loses a life. So it's actually it's a Corpse Knight with an Imperial Seal for Dockside on top for 3 mana, which I think is very strong. People were like disagreeing with me, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe it's too cute. I had like a Crisis.
No, I think that's like really good.
It's a Corpse Knight and a Imperial Seal in one card in a body. Which is like,
no, I think that's just good.
I think so too. This is the only deck I could find that working in. Like you want Dockside every single game and getting it.
What other deck would want that?
A pirate in the command zone that you cast infinitely for ETB. Yeah,
it's pretty niche. That's a pretty niche card.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, actually, with something was spoiled today. The all creatures are all types. That would actually work well with that too. If you could just when everything's a pirate. Yeah, brain explosion. So
I love pirates so much.
yeah, so you could use that to tutor any creature in your deck if you think about it, because all creatures in your deck are all
The
types.
Malcolm.
Yes,
I'm
your
like
Malcolm
losing
wheels
my
are
mind.
turning. Yeah, right.
My Timna now draws cards and makes
Yep.
mana.
Forerunner of the Coalition. You heard it here first. So there's a lot of cute things you can do with Dargo. Yeah, I've been enjoying it. Yeah.
Wait. Okay, I found another deck for it. Temur Malcolm.
Okay.
Whenever a pirate enters battlefield, it deals damage, right? It's not loss of life.
Yeah.
So you
no.
draw.
No. You lose life. Yeah, you lose life.
Okay, because I was gonna say, then you
yeah.
make 3 treasures every time you play a pirate in your Malcolm deck. And actually, you
Yeah.
could play it, then play Malcolm. Malcolm would be on the battlefield.
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
that'd be insane.
Yeah.
It's too bad. All right. That's why the card isn't good. That's the only reason.
Yeah, each opponent loses 1 life. That's right. Yeah, you almost had an aneurysm there.
Yeah.
Good. We're back.
Okay. Do you have anything else you want to add before we call it a show?
No, I always like challenging people to try new things with commanders that seem like, not great. I know that there's been other commanders that, don't really get the time of day. And if you just give it a little thought, there are people out there working on decks, so you just got to find it.
Yeah, it brings me back to how we met. We met on Brewing Paco back in the day.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So,
so that's a great example.
And that deck's gotten better. That's like the crazy thing. Like I was doing some mulliganing with it last night, and I was like, oh, Jessica's Will and Lotus. Turns out they're really, 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 really good. Like, they're better than I thought they were. Like when I originally added them to the deck, and I just hadn't played since.
Yeah, I think. Dargo and some of the other Commander legends are going to take some time for them to actually make some impact. I mean, people gravitate towards the really powerful cards right now, the Jessica's Wills, etc. But those will always be good, obviously. But I think to find niches for other cards is going to take a little time. So that's the area that I like to explore a little bit. But
yeah, you should check out Malcolm. Malcolm's that good shit. You should really check that out next. Once you're done the Dargo World Tour, I don't want to take you off the train.
Yeah, switch pirates.
Yeah. Make some treasures. Sack the treasures. Make some mana. Draw some cards.
Honestly, Malcolm's been really strong in almost every deck I've seen it in. It's just like, who thought like getting free Lotus Petals every turn is good, right? Like
the same people who thought a 2-mana creature that when it enters the battlefield makes a shit ton of Lotus Petals would also be fair. I mean, or the same ones that thought whenever an opponent draws a card, you make a treasure.
Yep.
Instead, not when, but pirates. Instead.
We're all just in the pirate world, right? Between Dargo and
this is the best time to be a pirate fan. I'm a huge pirate fan. When they added pirates to Magic, I lost my mind. I really did. I lost my mind. And then when I can't even get into it.
Yeah.
Pirates are great. If you're interested in more content like this, people watching this video, check out the Patreon, check out the YouTube comments. We want to hear what your thoughts are. Check out the Discords in the description. Riker's going to be there. If you hate Dargo, tell him how much you hate it, why you hate it, why you think it's the worst commander ever printed, and how much you hate pirates. And then he'll forward that to me, and then I'll delete it. And so thanks again. Thank you, Riker. Have a good night, everyone. Have a good day wherever you are. Everyone, see ya.
Bye, everyone.